Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Anjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashtotara Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Samstapaka Acharya His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. This morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 18, titled The Battle Between Lord Boar and Hiranyaksha. Text 8. Sagam udastāt salilasya gocare vinyasya tasyām adadhāt sva-sattvam abhiṣṭuto viśva-sṛjā prasūnair āpūryamāṇo vibudhaiḥ paśyato rehe sagam udastāt salilasya gocare vinyasya tasyām adadhāt sva-sattvam abhiṣṭuto viśva-sṛjā prasūnair āpūryamāṇo vibudhaiḥ paśyato re. Sagam udastāt salilasya gocare. Vinyasya tasyām adadhāt sva-sattvam. Abhiṣṭuto viśva-sṛjā prasūnair. Āpūryamāṇo vibudhaiḥ paśyato re. Sagam udastāt salilasya gocare. Vinyasya tasyām adadhāt sva-sattvam. abhiṣṭuto viśva-sṛjā prasūnair. āpūryamāṇo vibudhaiḥ paśyato re. Ladies, Saha, the Lord, Gam, the earth, udastāt, on the surface, salilasya, of the water, gocare, within his sight, vinyasya, having placed, tasyām, to the earth, abadhāt, he invested, sva, his own. Sattvam, existence. Abhiṣṭutaḥ, praised. Viśva-sṛjā, by Brahmā, the creator of the universe. Prasūnair, by flowers. Āpūryamāṇaḥ, becoming satisfied. Vibudhaiḥ, by the demigods. Paśyataḥ, while looking on. Areḥ, the enemy. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Translation. The Lord placed the earth within His sight on the surface of the water and transferred to her His own energy in the form of the ability to float on the water. While the enemy stood looking on, Brahmā, the creator of the universe, extolled the Lord, and the other demigods rained flowers on him. Purport. Those who are demons cannot understand how the Supreme Personality of Godhead floated the earth on water. But to devotees of the Lord, this is not a very wonderful act. Not only the earth, but many, many millions of planets are floating in the air. And this floating power is endowed upon them by the Lord. There is no other possible explanation. The materialists can explain that the planets are floating by the law of gravitation. But the law of gravitation works under the control or direction of the Supreme Lord. That is the version of Bhagavad Gita, which confirms by the Lord's statement that behind the material laws or nature's laws and behind the growth, maintenance, production and evolution of all the planetary systems, behind everything is the Lord's direction. The Lord's activities could be appreciated only by the demigods headed by Brahmā, and therefore when they saw the uncommon prowess of the Lord in keeping the earth on the surface of the water, they showered flowers on him in appreciation of his transcendental activity. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to Canto 3, Chapter 18 in the matter of the battle between Lord Bor and Hiranyaksha, Text 8. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Caitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swaminiti Namine Nama Acharya Padaya Nitai Kripa Pradaine Gaurakata Dhamadaya Nagragramatharine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Gopi Paranadhanadase Iti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paśyatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yatkripatamaham bande Shri Gurudinatharinam yatkripatamaham bande Paramananda Madhavam Shri Caitanya Ishwaram Katanchana smrite yasmin dushkaram sukaram bhavet Vismrite viparitam syat Shri Caitanyam namamitam. So here in this story, history, and we find that Lord Boar, when he actually appeared, he was the size of a thumb. But then he became so gigantic very soon, and he even lifted the earth from the depths of the water. Now, for the Lord to perform something like this is not difficult. To suddenly become gigantic from the size of a thumb, to be able to lift the whole earth. Here in this particular text, we see how the Lord floated the earth on the water. And Srila Prabhupada remarks, not only the earth, but many millions of planets are floating in the air. And this floating power is endowed upon them by the Lord. There is no other possible explanation. Just like even this material body, they say that the heart is what pumps the blood and gives energy to the body, therefore gives energy to the body. So then the question is, what makes the heart pump? So there is something beyond material nature which makes that happen, which scientists have not been able to understand, because Prabhupada would often challenge, if life is all about chemicals, there is no difference between a living body and a dead body. So why don't you revive the dead body? But it's not possible, because it is the spirit soul who's present along with the super soul. So which causes the heart to pump. So here Srila Prabhupada is explaining that there are millions of planets floating in the sky. Remember, it is millions of planets, not 9 planets. Okay, so there are millions of planets floating in the sky. And scientists may call it law of gravitation. But Prabhupada is explaining, but the law of gravitation works under the control and direction of the Supreme Lord. So ultimately there is somebody who is controlling or directing those laws. So they may only be able to understand some laws of nature, physical laws at least, but there is somebody who is controlling or directing those laws. And when I was in college, we had a professor who would encourage us to read the Feynman lectures on physics. Richard Feynman was a Nobel laureate. Now, in the introduction to his books, he gives an analogy, and he says that the universe is like a big chess game. He said, first of all, we have to figure out how many pieces are there on the board. I mean, how many columns are there, the squares are there on the board. Then we have to figure out how many players are there. And we haven't reached anywhere near that actually. They're still trying to figure out all these kind of things. And they said every once in a while something very unusual happens. The moment they think they understand some laws, then some, just like you have castling in chess. which is not, which is a little different than how normally things are played. So he said every once in a while something like this happens. So I remember when I heard our professor talking about it and later reading the book. So here is a scientist who explains how very little we know of the world. And that too, we are talking about observable world, and that observable world is very limited. I recollect that in his book, My Glorious Master, Bhurijan Prabhu, it's his recollection of the time that he spent with Srila Prabhupada. So I recollect in that book, there is one incident where Prabhupada is giving a talk and he speaks about giant interplanetary eagles. There are eagles which fly from planet to planet. So he speaks about the giant interplanetary eagles and who lay their eggs by atmospheric friction. This is something very difficult to wrap your head around. And so at the end of his talk, there is someone in the audience who asks him, how do we understand this? And Prabhupada's response is simply, you are still in your mother's womb. So on that note, what does it mean you're still in your mother's womb? I have something interesting to share with you. This will give us a good perspective of what does it mean to be in the mother's womb. Okay. In a mother's womb, there were two babies. Sometimes there are twins, two babies. One asked the other, do you believe in life after delivery? The other replied, why, of course. There has to be something after delivery. Maybe we are here to prepare ourselves for what we will be later. Nonsense, said the first. There is no life after delivery. What kind of life would that be? The second said, I don't know, but there will be more light than here. Maybe we will walk with our legs and eat from our mouths. Maybe we will have other senses that we can't understand now. The first replied, that is absurd. Walking is impossible, and eating with our mouths, ridiculous. The umbilical cord supplies nutrition and everything we need. But the umbilical cord is so short. Life after delivery is to be logically excluded. The second insisted, well, I think there is something and maybe it's different than it is here. Maybe we don't need this physical umbilical cord anymore. The first replied, nonsense. And moreover, if there is life, then why has no one ever come back from there? Delivery is the end of life. And in the after delivery, there is nothing but darkness and silence and oblivion. It takes us nowhere. Well, I don't know, said the second, but certainly we will meet Mother and she will take care of us. The first replied, Mother? You actually believe in Mother? That's laughable. If Mother exists, then where is she now? The second said, she's all around us. We are surrounded by her. We are of her. It is in her that we live. Without her, this world would not and could not exist. Said the first, well, I don't see her. So it is only logical that she doesn't exist. To which the second replied, sometimes when you are in silence and you focus and listen, you can perceive her presence and you can hear her loving voice calling down from above. So, this is the perspective of two babies in the womb, you know. So, we can see that to conceive of something outside of the womb is very difficult. And life inside the womb is of a particular type. And outside is very different. So when Srila Prabhupada says, you're still in your mother's womb, which means you don't understand life as it exists. That is the whole point. But here there is an interesting thing in this story of these two babies, where one of the babies is saying very clearly that she's all around us, we are surrounded by her, we are of her, it is in her that we live, without her this world would not and could not exist. Then again the baby says, sometimes when you're in silence and you focus and listen, you can perceive her presence, you can perceive her presence, and you can hear her loving voice calling down from above. You know, so Srila Prabhupada explains that here, just as this baby is saying, if you focus and listen. So anyone who picks up the Bhagavad Gita written by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada tries to focus and listen, they begin to understand that there is something else beyond the body. There is a soul. And Prabhupada often says repeatedly that you can perceive the soul. Until we took to Krishna consciousness, we just live in some kind of a in that form of existence. It's not very clear. There's a difference between matter and there's a difference between spirit. So Srila Prabhupada, with his beautiful explanations, he makes us, if we just focus and listen, we begin to perceive that there is matter and then there is spirit. There is a difference between matter and spirit, which everybody can perceive. You don't need to be some very exalted personality, which anybody who just focuses and listens to Srila Prabhupada can understand that there is a difference between body and soul. They're able to perceive consciousness. They're able to perceive the spirit soul to whatever extent. But they understand there is something different than matter. And Srila Prabhupada, in a lecture that I was hearing last week, he explains, you perceive matter, right? And you perceive matter and you also perceive whole world surrounding matter. You perceive matter and you also perceive a whole world surrounding matter. Then he says, you are able to perceive spirit, then why can't you accept that there is a whole world surrounding the spirit? Very beautiful analogy, very beautiful point Prabhupada makes. You are able to perceive matter, you are also able to perceive that there is a whole world of matter. So like that, likewise, you are able to perceive spirit. So like that, why can't you at least accept? Based on your experience of matter, why can't you at least accept that when you are able to perceive spirit, there is also a whole world of spirit, the spiritual world. That's what Prabhupada is trying to say. So Prabhupada makes things very, very simple. So the point is, even in this material world, there are things which we do not comprehend. For example, the giant interplanetary eagles which lay their eggs by atmospheric friction. That's beyond our conception. Sometimes people have difficulty. The Bhumandala is held by 4 elephants on the 4 corners, and when the elephants shake, there is earthquake. Now what sense would that make to a scientist? You know, these people are talking some fiction. But Bhagavatam is not fiction. So the point is, there are many things beyond our range of perception. So therefore Prabhupada uses the example that you're still in your mother's womb. Now this is one aspect of Krishna's creation, which there are many things which we cannot perceive because we're very tiny beings, you know. And there is that famous story of Srila Prabhupada and Tamal Krishna Goswami, you know, where Prabhupada is making a point, you know, and a nice philosophical point, how small we are. He explains the expanse of the universe, He expands then he explains the expanse of the earth, the expanse of the country, then the expanse of the city, and the expanse of the place. And he says, here is one Tamal Krishna Goswami thinking he is the center of the universe. So Prabhupada is making a point there that we are very small, and the dimensions of the universe and what goes on in this universe is hardly perceivable by us. Yet we think, as scientists or whatever, we can understand the truth. No, it's very difficult. I mean, it's not possible actually to understand the workings of material nature for someone with someone who is especially conditioned. But that's one aspect of it, that the limitation of understanding things, which even a scientist accepts. Richard Feynman, for example, I mentioned. He also understands. We have not understood. We have hardly understood what nature is all about. Then there is something else. There is something else. There are laws of material nature. Okay, so things work in a certain manner. But sometimes Krishna intervenes and makes things different. So far what I was talking about are how things are in this material world, which we do not understand at all. Okay. Then there are things which we may understand. But even within that, Krishna interferes when he wants to do so. And then he turns things topsy-turvy. What is an example of that? Grossly, if you could say, yes, I mean, they're gross and subtle. By gross, I mean what is externally visible. You could see that Krishna lifted Govardhan hill with the little pinky of his left hand, the tip of that. I mean, a mountain with such a large circumference, large diameter, to balance on the pinky of someone's left finger, it defies the laws of physics. But Krishna does these kind of things. These are visible things. But there are things which are not visible, which also Krishna interferes. For example, Srila Prabhupada said that when you take to the process of Krishna consciousness, before that, let me say that Prabhupada always explains the laws of material nature are stringent. He speaks about the law of karma, very stringent. Cannot escape the laws of karma. However, Srila Prabhupada explains that when one takes to the process of Krishna consciousness and claps one's hands in front of the deities, the lines of one's hands change. He says this. Now, is this a statement of encouragement or is it factual? It's factual. It's factual. Because Krishna interferes in the lives of the devotees. This is a fact. And these we are talking about material laws. There are gross laws, for example, of gravitation and things like that. There are all the laws of karma. These are subtle. But nevertheless, they are laws of nature. That's why astrologers, because it is material, they are able to predict, okay, this is the alignment of the planets, and from your chart, it's going to be like this. Because it's material. But it's subtle. However, Krishna interferes in the lives of his devotees. Once one takes up to this process, Krishna interferes in the lives of the devotees. Now, 2 days ago, someone asked me this question. Is this applicable only to the perfected, pure devotees? No. It is applicable to all levels of pure devotees. So, what does it mean actually? Okay, before I get on to that, Srila Prabhupada often said that his only qualification was that he strictly followed his Guru Maharaj. Yesterday was the Vyasa Puja of Ravindra Sura Prabhu, and in that he read out a beautiful offering to Srila Prabhupada. Where he explained this in very great detail. It's a very fantastic talk. It's there on Mayapur TV. You all can watch it whenever you have time. It was reading from an offering written many years ago. So he brought it out brilliantly that Srila Prabhupada emphasized this fact that we need to follow strictly. And Prabhupada attributed the miracles that he performed to the fact that he followed strictly. And by following Srila Prabhupada strictly, we can also enact miracles not only in our lives but also in the lives of others. So the thread is that strict following. So what does it actually mean, strict following? Prabhupada said, just do as I'm doing. And strict following, what does it entail? So in the preface to the teachings of Lord Caitanya and elsewhere also, Srila Prabhupada explains there are 6 principles of surrender. To accept things favorable for the service of the Lord, to reject things unfavorable to the service of the Lord, to firmly believe in the Lord's protection, to have no interest separate from the interest of the Lord, to be exclusively dependent on the mercy of the Lord, and to always keep oneself meek and humble. And Prabhupada explains that Krishna immediately takes direct charge of someone who takes up this process of surrender. So when it says strict following, this is what Srila Prabhupada is teaching us. This is what it means. This is what it means. Now someone can say, okay, but this also appears very lofty. Am I on this platform that I'm able to do all these things perfectly? Yes, one may not be on that platform of being able to do all this perfectly. But the very acceptance of this principle of surrender, the moment one makes up one's mind, I will accept these principles of surrender, I will accept nothing else, and I will never give up. From that instant, Krishna takes charge, direct charge of that devotee. So when we say Krishna takes direct charge, currently, or rather, before we take to Krishna consciousness, before we accept the principle of surrender, Krishna takes charge through the material energy. Of course, when Krishna says that takes direct charge, it means through his internal energy. So right now, or before we take to Krishna consciousness, we are under the charge of the external energy. And so the laws of karma are applicable to applicable to our situation of being under the external energy. So our lives are dictated by the laws of karma. We have some freedom, of course, but there is this law of karma within which we have to, the broader framework of our life is determined by the laws of karma. So when Krishna takes direct charge, what happens is that, as Prabhupada says, the lines of your hand change. So he makes our lives, he interferes in our lives, he makes our lives in such a manner that we are able to increase these 6 principles of surrender until we reach the stage of perfection, which is prema. So the moment a person takes to the process of Krishna consciousness seriously, that is what Krishna sees. So then someone asked me this question again, that, okay, but if we are not following strictly, sometimes we may fall down, or sometimes we may not be up to the mark, or whatever it is. So would Krishna give up? Or what happens there? No. The point is that Krishna never gives up until we give up. In fact, even if we give up, Krishna never gives up. That's the beauty of the process of bhakti. But the point is that Krishna understands the genuine struggles of a devotee. So Srila Prabhupada was once with a group of devotees, and there was a reporter also present in the room, and Srila Prabhupada received a letter from a devotee couple, and it was a letter which was filled with both their struggles in Krishna consciousness and with their determination to continue the process of Krishna consciousness. I mean, with determination. So Prabhupada read this letter and tears began to flow down his cheeks. Then he showed this letter to the reporter and he said, just see how much they are struggling, but they'll never give up. So this is a pure devotee is the representative of Krishna in this material world. So Krishna understands if we struggle or if we fall short of the mark. The point is to maintain that determination. So in the 331 purport of the Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada explains in the beginning stages of Krishna consciousness, well, that would refer at least until Anartha Nivritti, one may not be able to execute the injunctions of the Lord perfectly. But if one is not resentful of this principle and goes on with the practice of Krishna consciousness, then surely one would be successful. So the point, but one should go on without consideration of defeat or hopelessness. So the Krishna consciousness is a practice, but there is a certain conscious element to that practice. It is not that, okay, I chant 16 rounds daily, I attend morning program, that's it, I attain love of God. No. It has to be performed with a certain conscious attitude. For example, Prabhupada said, chanting should be done like the genuine call of a child for its mother, with that state of helplessness. So, bhakti has to also be performed in a certain state of consciousness. What is that state of consciousness? They explained in that 6 principles. Always one should feel oneself meek and humble, which is what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also taught us. Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi saishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. So one has to practice Krishna consciousness in that state where one feels lower than everybody else in this world. Factually, that's not an easy thing. We generally think we are better than so many people. But to think everybody is a spirit soul, everybody is an associate of the Lord, and to feel lower than everybody else is not an ordinary thing. And to be tolerant. What are we tolerant about generally in the society of devotees? There are so many things which the imperfections of devotees, so many different things. Tolerant. So when one performs this devotional service with this mode, then even if one may fall short, Krishna takes care of it. But the point that I'm trying to make is that when we speak about miracles, we can experience miracles in our own lives and we can transmit that miracles to others who we preach to. Because Srila Prabhupada came and transmitted the miracle. This is the miracle of the parampara, the miracle of strictly following. When one follows strictly, then Krishna bends the laws of nature to facilitate our lives in Krishna consciousness and facilitate the lives of others in Krishna consciousness. So this is an essential feature of taking up the process of Krishna consciousness. Krishna begins to interfere with the laws of nature. When I say that, especially I mean the laws of karma. And we are in a process in the Sankirtana movement. Now Sankirtana means Sangyut Kirtana. Sangyut means complete. And Kirtana means glorification. How can you completely glorify the Lord? In the association of devotees. That's why it's called Sankirtana. Together we chant, right? So Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. Which means in the process of Krishna consciousness, we are not trying to win alone. We are trying to win together. We want everybody to win. And we want to win together. We want to win together. We want everybody to win. That's why Prabhupada said, your love for me will be shown by how much you cooperate together. So how can that happen? Unless we see, we want everybody to win, not just me. We want everybody to win. And we can see the Bhagavatam, because the Prachesas were so cooperative, the Lord personally appears in front of them. He tells them, I'm so pleased with your cooperation, because that spirit, So we have a society of devotees which Srila Prabhupada has created. So when we work together in the society of devotees, and we don't give up, we always maintain the hope both individually and collectively, working together, then we see the miracles in our everyday life and also in the larger group of devotees. So this coming back to this verse, it speaks about a certain laws of nature which are under the direction of the Supreme Lord. But we saw in the Govardhan Leela how Krishna changed that law to accommodate a pastime. Similarly, there are subtle laws of nature, the laws of karma. Krishna can also tamper with those laws when it comes to the lives of devotees to facilitate one's advancement in Krishna consciousness and to push forward the Sankirtan movement. Okay, so these are some thoughts that I had on this purport. So if there are any comments or questions or reflections. Yes, Ruji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for the wonderful class. Like you were mentioning the mother's womb theory, right? Sometimes we receive a comment while preaching is that people don't believe in the next world. They don't believe in the next life. So what's the best answer to that question in accordance with this mother's womb theory?
You can give the same analogy. Sometimes I've seen it works because it is a reality of this world which people are able to accept. I mean, in general, what I've seen is that, as Prabhupada says, what can your talking do? Just give them a book. So what does it mean by that? What does it actually mean? It means that the words on these pages are not just some piece of information. There is a certain transcendental potency that these words carry. The potency, the spiritual potency which has come down through the parampara and transmitted by Srila Prabhupada. So it is that which actually shakes up people's misconceptions. So even when we speak to someone, Srila Prabhupada would say purity is the force. So if we accept Prabhupada fully and we try to transmit the message of the parampara with that mood, that is what actually changes people sometimes. It is not necessarily the particular information that you give. Although that is important, I'm not saying that's not. I'm not undervaluing the value of information also. But the more important than that is the potency that you are transmitting. Are you a transmitter of the potency of the parampara? So we can become a transmitter of that potency when we follow strictly. That's why it's called the transparent via medium. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, thank you for the class. You mentioned how Krishna interferes in the life of the devotees in respect to karma and everything. Prabhu, I remember a lecture by Bhakti Prachar Parivajak Maharaj. This was few years ago before he took sannyas. He said sarcastically that Guru is good as long as he doesn't interfere. It feels like that, So this tendency, you don't want the interference and you want to go on with your, your casual and nice material life, How do we escape this tendency, and like everything is going good and let it keep on going?
Okay, it's like this. You're going from here to, let's say Malda, which takes about 5 hours. Okay, you go to Ramkeli to Lord Caitanya and where Lord Chaitanya met Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. It'll take about 5 hours by road. At what speed? It is certain speed, about 80 or so, if you travel at that. Now you may be traveling very comfortably in a car at 30. And you may imagine that you will reach Ramkeli today. May not be. I don't know, I mean, it's half the speed, yeah. Anyway, I'm just giving an analogy to make you understand that if you have a certain destination which you need to reach by the end of the day, you need to calculate the speed at which you need to reach there. You need to travel. Okay? Just doing good is not enough. Just doing good is not enough. You need to also measure whether you're able to reach the goal or not. So that is the advantage of having experienced devotees. Guru is definitely someone who is, I mean, that's why I accepted someone as experienced, right? But not just the Guru, there are also other devotees who are experienced. So we also need to be in association, we always need to be in association with those who are more experienced. Because what happens is otherwise we may be traveling at 30, thinking that we will reach, everything is going well. Nice car, everything is going well. So why do I need to bother? No, we need to bother. We need to bother whether we are performing to our full capacity or not. That's very important. That we need to perform to our full capacity. So the association of devotees helps us in that, to see whether we are performing to our full capacity. Then somebody or the other will say, you are spaced out, or you need to do better. So if we keep our ears and eyes open, then we accept that principle. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in one of his talks, he mentions that every object, animate or inanimate, is a manifestation of the mercy of my Sri Gurudeva. Which means that the instruction can come from anyone. Everybody is meant to help. Like Srila Prabhupada, he did not start publishing books based on what some advanced devotee spoke of course he was printing Back to Godhead magazines. Guru Maharaj had already told him to print. But the shift from Back to Godhead to books came because of a man in a tea stall whom Prabhupada was trying to distribute the Back to Godhead magazine. He told him that, look, these magazines people read and throw away. Why don't you publish books? Then what did Prabhupada think? Oh, my Guru Maharaj is speaking through this person. That is because of the fact that Prabhupada has fully surrendered to the will of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So, that is rare. I mean, we may not be able to understand sometimes when a karmi speaks, whether we may not be on that platform. At least we can be sure that when we associate with more advanced devotees, more advanced than us, then obviously that would help us in our progress much more swiftly. Yes, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the class. In the purport, Prabhupada says that the Lord is so beautifully making not only the earth planet, but all the other planets, the Lord is making them float in the space. But elsewhere, Prabhupada also writes that the earth is not moving, it is stable and it's fixed in one place. And also the 5th canto of Bhagavatam says that the earth is not moving.
Okay.
How do we understand this?
Here, does he speak about moving earth here? He doesn't speak about moving earth here. Right?
It says it's floating in the space.
Floating.
But the earth is placed on top of something, like it's not really in the space, but when we look at the whole, from the 5th canto of Bhagavatam, when we see the universe model, then the earth is actually sitting, and then there is Mount Meru, and it's not really like up in the space.
Yeah, well, I think this is a technical detail which here also he doesn't speak about moving, so I think we'll take that as the basic point, that if he says here it is moving and somewhere else it is not moving, both places he's speaking about fixed, just the point of reference may be different. Like even scientists, they accept that all the calculations come true even if you accept earth as the center because of relative motion. Sometimes when we sometimes we are sitting in a train and we suddenly feel we are moving although the adjacent train is moving. So there is relative motion. Yes, the Vedas accept geocentric model where Earth is the center. But it doesn't speak about moving here. So I think it's a question of what angle of vision it's being looked at. That's all. I think that's my understanding.
Thank you, Prabhu. One small point, Prabhu, regarding Prabhupada saying, since you can perceive the spirit, you can also perceive everything around the spirit. Is it generally understood that we people can perceive the spirit?
No, I didn't say that you can perceive everything in the, around the spirit. Prabhupada only says, why can't you accept
that something exists?
Yeah, just
But
like you perceive matter, and then you also perceive everything around that. So at least why don't you accept that you're able to perceive spirit? A spiritual world exists.
But how do we know that we actually perceive the spirit? What is the knowledge or intelligence around the statement that we actually perceive the spirit? Because only when we start the spiritual life, we are actually understanding that we are not this body and we are the spirit.
Correct. That's what Prabhupada is saying. Like Prabhupada is giving a talk how spirit is matter, different than matter, and things like that. That's why I said that when people read Prabhupada's books, until they read, they don't. Like even before we read, we may not have an idea. Everything must have looked very mixed up. But the moment we read the books, then we understand there is a difference between matter and spirit. We're able to perceive it also. So until they come to that point, they can't. But once they perceive it, I don't know whom Prabhupada is addressing that, whether it was for the devotees or whether it's for the non-devotees. But the point that he's making is when you can perceive there is a difference between the two, why can't you accept just that there is a whole world of spirit?
Thank you.
Okay.